started with the stupidest thing, a broken ornament, a little glass angel my daughter made in second grade with glitter wings and a bent paperclip halo. It had hung on our tree every year since, always near the top, always safely out of reach. But this year we weren't at our house. We were at my parents', the family house, as they still like to call it, even though only my sister ever stayed there anymore. My daughter Leia was 12. Not a little kid, not exactly a teen yet either. Caught in that in-between where everything still matters more than it should. She reached up to adjust the angel, and that's when my sister snapped at her. "Don't touch what you didn't hang." It wasn't loud, no one else even seemed to notice, but I was watching. Yayla's hand froze midair, then dropped to her side. I let it go, told myself it wasn't worth it. It was Christmas Eve. Everyone was already tense from traveling, unpacking, cooking. My sister Trish had always been a bit of a control freak, especially with kids. Her own 2 boys were younger and constantly being dragged around like puppets, never allowed to speak unless spoken to, and always on edge. But that was her style. I didn't interfere as long as she didn't mess with my daughter, but she did repeatedly. Quiet little digs always when no one else was paying attention. My husband Grant caught her once the year before when she told Leia she needed to stop whining about the cold and act like a big girl. Leia had been crying because she got stung by a bee at the Christmas tree farm. He said something then. Nothing dramatic, just one of those quiet married person whispers to me later. "She does that a lot, huh?" She did, and I had let it slide too many times. I know that now. That night, Christmas Eve, everyone was scattered in the living room. My dad was already passed out in his recliner with a football game humming in the background. My mom was in the kitchen frosting cookies with my aunt. Grant was helping Leia set up a gingerbread house on the coffee table. And Trish was watching from the other end of the couch, watching and waiting like she always did for something to go wrong so she could fix it. Control it when a gumdrop fell off the side of the gingerbread house and rolled toward the edge. Leia scrambled to catch it and bumped the table. The whole roof slid off. It was just a cookie, but she looked devastated. Her eyes watered immediately, and her mouth did that wobbly thing where she tries so hard not to cry because she's not a baby. Even though someone keeps treating her like one. Trish shot up, marched across the room. Everyone assumed she was going to help. I did too, but she grabbed Leia's wrist hard, yanked her to her feet. "Stop crying, you're embarrassing us." The room went silent. Leia gasped and looked at me. Her eyes were wide red already. I froze. My brain didn't even catch up fast enough to process what had just happened. Grant did. He stood up so fast his chair toppled over. Walked straight to the dining table where we'd had dinner and slammed his palm down hard enough to rattle the glasses. "Get it. No yelling. Just those 2 words like a gavel hitting a desk." Everyone turned. My mom opened her mouth but didn't speak. My uncle sat down his drink. My aunt looked straight at my sister. Trish just stood there for a second, then grabbed her purse and walked out. She didn't say goodbye, didn't apologize, didn't even look at me. The door slammed behind her, and just like that, it was over. Except, of course, it wasn't, not even close. After she left, the room didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. You don't rip open a wound like that and expect everyone to keep frosting cookies. Leia was still standing there, stunned, her cheeks red and blotchy. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her, but she didn't cry. Not then. She just clung to me like she was waiting for someone to pull her away again. My mom shuffled over, eventually tried to mutter something about how Trish just gets overwhelmed sometimes. My aunt shot her a look so sharp, it could have sliced the gingerbread house in half. "Overwhelmed? Are you kidding me?" That was assault. She didn't raise her voice. No one did. That was the eerie part. Everything stayed quiet, like we were all afraid of making the air any heavier than it already was. My uncle stood up and announced he was leaving. Not because of us, but because he couldn't stomach watching the favorite daughter act like that anymore. His words, not mine. And then he added that maybe it was time my parents stopped sending her money every month like she was a college kid and not a grown woman with 2 kids she barely parented. My dad woke up halfway through that sentence, looked confused, mumbled something about bourbon, and then promptly fell back asleep. Grant didn't say much after that. He just stayed near Leia, his hand on her shoulder, eyes locked on the front door like he was half expecting Trish to come back. He didn't. The rest of the evening dragged on in uncomfortable quiet. No one sang carols. No one asked about presents. No one mentioned church. We ended up leaving early, packed our bags, and left before dawn on Christmas morning. My mom tried to convince us to stay. Said Trish wouldn't be back until after New Year's anyway. I didn't answer. Grant just said we're done, and that was it. The drive home was long and quiet. Leia slept most of the way, curled in the back seat with her headphones on. I kept thinking about all the little things that suddenly felt bigger now. Every moment I had brushed off, every time I told myself she didn't mean it like that, every excuse I had made for my sister just because it was easier than calling her out. The truth is Trish had been like this forever. Controlling, jealous, mean when no one was looking, and we'd all let her get away with it. But now she crossed a line, and this time there'd be consequences. We didn't know how deep it would go yet. We didn't know what Leia was going to tell us a few nights later or how it would change everything. It was the night after we got home. I was in the laundry room unpacking the last of our clothes, trying to get rid of that awful detergent smell my mom used on everything. Grant was downstairs making cocoa the way I liked it. Real milk, a pinch of cinnamon. No one had said much since we got back. We were trying, I guess, to let things settle, let the dust clear before we decided what to do next. Then came in. She was holding the angel ornament, the one that had survived every Christmas since second grade, until this one wing was missing. I hadn't even noticed until she held it up and said it didn't fall, that Trish broke it on purpose. She said it like she'd been practicing. Come steady. She was hanging it on the tree and Trish came up behind her and said something about how it looked cheap. And she plucked it off the branch and accidentally dropped it on the tile, then smiled. I felt my stomach knot up. I wanted to run downstairs and call every one of my family members and demand to know if they'd ever seen her act like this. But Leia wasn't finished. She told me this wasn't the first time, that it started years ago. Trish would say things when I wasn't around, mean cutting things about her hair, her weight, her voice. Once when she was 7, she said Trish told her if she ever cried in front of people, no one would want to be her friend. And then came the worst part. She told me she tried to say something once to my mom, and my mom told her not to make drama, that Trish was just strict, that she'd grow out of it. He never did. I sat on the laundry room floor. Leia sat next to me, still clutching that broken ornament, and I didn't even try to hold it together. I had been so busy trying to keep the peace that I let my sister use my kid as an emotional punching bag. I wanted to throw something or scream or both. But then I saw Illa's face. She looked lighter, like getting it out made her breathe again. Downstairs, I heard Grant putting mugs on the counter. I called him up. When she told him everything, he didn't say a word. He just nodded, walked over to the living room, picked up his phone, and opened our banking app. He removed my sister from our shared family account. She had been using it for emergency help ever since her divorce. At least that's what we were told. Turned out she had been ordering designer clothes and takeout. Every time she asked, she had a new excuse, and I had always transferred the money without asking questions. No more. We didn't tell my parents, not yet. We needed to decide how much we were even willing to say. But we did make one decision right away. We weren't going back for New Year's. We were done pretending everything was okay. Done smoothing things over for the sake of family. We had our own family now. And for the first time in years, we were going to start acting like it. 3 days after Christmas, my mom showed up at our door. She didn't call first. She was standing there in her coat with a tin of her cinnamon pecan bars and a grocery bag filled with leftover Tupperware meals, like that would somehow smooth over everything. I didn't even get a word out before she launched into a slow, guilt-laced monologue about how things had gotten out of hand and how maybe we had overreacted by leaving so suddenly. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. You know, Trish is sorry. She's been crying for days. She didn't mean to hurt Leia. She just felt replaced. Replaced. Like my daughter existing in the same room was some kind of threat. I asked her if she even believed that Trish yanked Illa's arm. She didn't answer, just said, "We all need to learn how to forgive before the year ends." Grant walked in, then took one look at my face and told my mom it wasn't a good time. She hesitated, then pulled a folded envelope from her coat pocket and said, "Trish wanted me to give you this." We didn't open it while she was there. We just let her finish her weak explanation, told her we were busy, and shut the door. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table and unfolded the letter. I expected a fake apology. What I got instead was worse. It was a rambling, passive-aggressive list of reasons why I had always made her feel small, and how raising a kid without ever struggling financially doesn't make you better than anyone. She wrote that Leia was too sensitive and would have a harder life if I didn't toughen her up. Then the kicker, she ended the letter with, "If you cut me off, you're proving exactly what kind of sister you've always been. P. Selfish." Grant took the letter from my hands, walked outside, and lit it on fire in the grill. We spent the next day in a kind of stunned silence. Not angry silence, just that kind of stillness that comes after a big storm when everything's already been knocked down and you're not sure what's left standing. But then something strange happened around 11 p.m. 2 nights before New Year's. We got a text from my aunt. It was a photo. My parents' living room empty except for Trish sitting alone on the couch with a wine glass watching an old video of us all from a Christmas years ago. My mom and dad were nowhere in sight. Underneath the photo, she wrote, "We told your parents they had a choice. They finally picked a side." About time. I sat back stunned. Grant laughed once, just a breath, then looked at me and said, "Think she's still crying?" The next morning, I checked our family account. My parents had unfollowed Trish's Venmo. Sounds small, but in our family, that was the equivalent of exile. Then my aunt called, and this is where it turned. She said she and my uncle had found something. Back in October, Trish had used my mom's login to transfer money from a joint savings account. Not just the usual few hundred, but over $4,000 for what? A weekend spa retreat to unwind before the holidays. She'd sent pictures to a friend, the same friend apparently, who accidentally sent them to my aunt instead of Trish. They didn't tell my mom yet, but they were planning to. Grant looked at me after that call and said what we were both thinking. We weren't done yet. New Year's Eve started quiet, too quiet. We had no plans to go anywhere, and honestly, it felt good. We bought all of Illa's favorite snacks. Sparkling cider, cheesy popcorn, chocolate fondue, and set up the living room like a little private movie theater. It was going to be the three of us. No calls, no visitors, no family drama. That was the plan until the doorbell rang at 2 p.m. It was my dad. Not with my mom, not with flowers or a tin of cookies. Just him standing on our porch like he wasn't the same man who'd snored through the whole disaster 6 days ago. Grant opened the door and didn't say a word, just held it wide enough for him to step in if he dared. He did. He looked older. I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe because he always faded into the background during these things, always avoided picking sides. But that day he wasn't quiet. He sat down at our kitchen table and said without any buildup, "She took more than the savings. She took your mom's card, bought a flight." My mouth went dry. Trish had fled. She was in Florida staying with some old college friend. My mom had found out 2 nights ago when the bank flagged her account for suspicious charges. A beachfront hotel spa treatment's high-end room service. She'd maxed out 2 cards in under 36 hours. My dad looked ashamed. Said he and my mom were fighting not over the money, but over the fact that my mom still refused to call the police. She's not a criminal. She kept insisting, but my aunt had other plans. She filed a fraud report anyway. Quietly, without asking permission, she told the bank it was identity theft. He gave them the text messages, the photos, everything. And suddenly Trish was in real trouble. Then came the twist. Leia came into the room right as my dad was leaving. She didn't say anything to him, just watched him go with this calm I didn't expect. After he left, she asked if we were still going to celebrate. We said yes, of course. Then she walked over to her backpack, pulled out an old notebook, one of those pink, sparkly ones from 2nd grade, and said she had something to show us. Inside were little drawings. Notes, a list of times she said Trish had hurt her feelings. Some were small. She said I was too loud. Others were darker. She said, "Mom only pretends to like me. She told me not to tell anyone." She pinched my arm under the table once. I flipped through every page, each one stabbing deeper. Then the last entry, a drawing of our family, just the 3 of us holding hands under a bunch of fireworks. And underneath it, she had written, "This year we don't invite them back." That's when I knew we weren't just cutting off my sister. We were cutting off the whole lie. The entire system that had protected her, the parents who stayed neutral, the silence, the excuses. We weren't going back. That night when the clock hit midnight, we stood outside wrapped in blankets, watching fireworks from our driveway. Leia clutched her drawing. Grant had his arm around us both, and we toasted the new year with cider and no regrets. New Year's Day, I woke up to silence. No calls, no group texts, no leftover guilt in my inbox, pretending to be love. The group chat my mom had maintained for years, the one she called Fam Jam, had been renamed to just Jam. Trish was gone from it, so were we. It wasn't just symbolic, it was surgical. Around noon, my aunt called. She was furious, not at us, but at my mom, who had apparently broken down after finding out about the fraud report and begged her to withdraw it. My aunt refused. Told her if she tried to undo it, she'd take the whole mess to a lawyer, and she would include every financial trail, not just Trish's, but all the money my parents had funneled to her over the years while claiming things were tight. She said something that stuck with me. Covering for her made her worse, and it made you weaker. After that, everything fell fast. By the end of the first week of January, Trish's accounts were frozen. Her kids, the ones she barely parented, were staying with their dad more and more. My mom called once, left a voicemail crying. Not about Trish, about Illa. He said she missed her, that she hoped she didn't think Grandma was a bad person. Leia listened to it with me, didn't cry, didn't say anything, just hit delete and walked away. It was strange. After all those years of walking on eggshells, the quiet now felt different. Not empty, free. One night, I sat down with Grant after Leia had gone to bed. We poured a couple glasses of wine, and he said something I didn't expect. She was never going to stop. I knew what he meant. Trish. She'd never stopped trying to dig into our lives to control whatever she could. If it wasn't our daughter, it would have been something else. The favor, why? A demand disguised as a need. And the part that hurt the most, our parents would have let her because she was the golden one. The one they bailed out and made excuses for, the one who always needed saving, but not anymore. We changed our numbers 2 weeks later. Quietly, no announcement, no post online, no warning. And then for the first time since any of this started, we booked a trip. Not far, just a weekend at a cabin near the coast, a place with board games and bad cell service and no one who knew our last name. Leia helped pack. She brought the broken angel ornament with her wrapped in tissue paper and placed it gently in her suitcase. I asked her why. She said, because it's mine and I want it with me when we start over. So we went and we didn't invite anyone and no one came.